Well, hi everyone. My name is Javier Villegas. I am from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I work at Mediterranean Shipping Company for a number of years. I'm involved with the SQL Server since early ages. I would say SQL Server 2000, SQL Server 6.5. I specialize on performance tuning, server administrator, and high availability. That's what I like Derek's presentation before. I am data platform MVP and also have a blog, a technical blog, and well, I am contributor to the MSDN forums. I'm also technical speaker on different events and conferences like the SQL Saturdays, 24 Hours of Pass, well now GroupBy and soon Data Platform Geeks. I'm also member of the SQL Argentina virtual groups from PABS. So let's move on then. Okay, this is the agenda, some of the topics that we will try to cover today. So we're going to talk about these features. These are a particular set of features in SQL Server 2017. These features are kind of particular because, as the title of the presentation said, those are community-driven feature or enhancements, right? We all know that Microsoft is a very different company right now. Now they listen to us. They listen to the vendors, they listen to the customers, they listen to the data platform community, right, and the ESVs. So a number of years ago, they used to have this site, Microsoft Connect. Now it's gone because of the GDPR things. They having something different. But they require feedback from the community to see which features would you like to see in the major or the next SQL Server version, right? And these are some of them, right? And so we will try to cover them all. Smart differential backup, smart transaction log backup, select into on file groups, 10-day improvement and monitoring, transaction log monitoring and diagnostics. And we're also going to see one of my favorite ones, which is Resumable Online index rebuild and automatic plan correction. So let's move on. This is SQL Server 2017 today, right? This is this rich platform, right? With it runs on almost every OS, almost every platform. It supports graph query. It has advanced machine learning, right? And now with the query processing, it's having some additional intelligence to optimize and provide us with better execution plans. This is really what we want at the end of the day, right? And this is the industry leader and one of the most secure data platforms that are available. In terms of SQL Server itself, now we know that it's very different than before, right? Now we can work with any data type. We can work with structured data, as we've always been, and also unstructured, right? We can work with a number of programming language, right? So we have R, we have Python, so a bunch of things that are new to this field. Also, as I said before, we can we have a choice of OS. We have Linux, we have Windows. We're going to cover that in a minute. And also, we can deploy it anywhere, right? On-premise, as we always have been, in the cloud, right? And in a hybrid environment. That's really good. Plenty of choices. So this is how we can call it the intelligent data platform, right? So in terms of platforms, right? As we said before, Windows, right? As always, Windows servers, Windows 10, Linux, right, is a huge thing. I remember not too long ago, if someone was telling me that SQL Server was about to run in Linux, I would say, you're joking. And now it's real, right? And it's really good, actually. In terms of Linux, it runs on the major distributions, right? Like Red Hat, SUSE, and Ubuntu. But it also runs in others distribution, right? Like CentOS or Fedora, right? And also it runs in Docker, Windows, Linux Docker, and also in Mac. That gives us the possibility of run SQL Server 2017 on a Mac OS machine, right? Something crazy if you ask this question not so long ago. Well, also SQL Server is recognized as the best database platform for the last 3 years in a row, right? So Gartner, which provide this beautiful magic quadrant, now put Microsoft with SQL Server and the whole data platform as a leader, as the #1, right? Okay, with SQL Server 2016, what Microsoft told us is that it was faster just out of the box. Just install it and it's gonna be faster. And with SQL Server 2017, they promised and they are accomplished this to be even faster, right? And besides being faster, have more features, right? Let's talk for a second about machine learning. In SQL Server 2016, they introduced the R platform. Now, in 2017, we have the addition of Python, right? In terms of adaptive query processing, right? As I mentioned briefly before, they are trying to put additional intelligence to the query processing to get better execution plans, right? This is huge. And to me, my favorite feature, which is Resumable Online Index Reveal. This is my favorite feature as a DBA, right? I know that maybe running SQL Server on Linux is the bright star, but this one, Resumable Online Index Reveal, is something also huge. We're going to talk about that later. Okay, let's go straight to the first feature, Smart Differential Backup. What is that? Okay, let's say that we, as DBA, we have our maintenance, we do a full backup on Sunday, and then during the week we perform differential backups, right, until the following weekend, right, until the following Sunday. So now in SQL Server 2017, we have, Microsoft have introduced a new column, right, in the DMDB file space usage, which actually provide us the amount of extent that were modified since the last full backup, right? So why is this so important? Right now, every day, we can check the amount of pages that were modified since the last full backup. So having the total amount of pages and the ones that were changed, we can easily calculate the percentage of the database changes. And maybe it's a good idea to take another full backup instead of doing differential backups, right? So, but now we have the choice, right? We can query this column on this DMB before doing the backup and decide, okay, if the threshold is over, I don't know, 60, 70, 80%, we decide and we say, okay, let's continue doing a differential backup if it is below our threshold, or let's do another full backup if it is over, right? So that's really good. So this is one of the items that was voted by the community. Right? And here is the example of how to query this percentage of change. We have the modified extended page count and the allocated extended page count, right? So we do a percentage and easily we get this value. We're gonna see some examples later. Additionally to the smart differential backup, we also have smart transaction log backups, right? So there is a DMB called DMDB log stat that now it exposes a column called log since last log backup in megabyte. What is this? Okay. Also, as our maintenance plan, let's say we do transaction log backup every 10 minutes, right? So we do our full backup or differential backup and we continue doing the transaction log backup, right? So querying this new column from this DMF, right? What we get is the amount of megabyte in the log since the last transaction log backup, right? So why is that so important? Because now we can also compare this amount of megabyte versus the total size of megabyte for the transaction log and decide, okay, is it good to take a transaction log backup or maybe I wait? My example, how I implement this was completely a bit different actually. In my experience, what I did is instead of doing transaction log backup every 10 minutes, right, I modify the schedule of my transaction log backups to run every minute, right? But instead of just going the backup log, right, I'm just checking this column, right? And this column has certain amount of megabyte or certain amount of percentage, right? I do the transaction log backup. And now what I can tell you, for example, is that over the weekend when we don't have a lot of activity, or at least we don't have the same activity than during the week, right? The amount of files for the transaction log backups has been reduced a lot. So again, with the smart backups, right? Either full backups, differential backups, or transaction log backups, now we have a choice. And Microsoft have put this intelligence, right? And we have the choice to use it or not. So in terms of solutions, you can use your imagination to see how you can use that, right? But it's really powerful. Okay, another highly voted feature, select into on file group, right? What is that, right? We all know that writing T-SQL, maybe we have to write or create some intermediate tables, right? And, before we were able just to do select into and the destination table, and by default, it's gonna be to the default file group, right? This kind of things we can see it very often on warehouses, right? But now, what is this feature about? Now we have the possibility of redirect the output of the select into a particular file group. And why is that so good? Because on a warehouse environment, for example, we can set up a permanent or temporary file group with data files on another drive on a really fast storage, right? And we can improve the performance of this select into, right? So we send the output of these intermediate tables into a table on a different file group, which is running on data files which are on a super fast storage, right? So that is really good. Here is the syntax. We're gonna cover it later, but basically what it's doing is just adding a new file group, a new data file for that file group, and the last line is saying select into and redirecting to the file group FG2. We're gonna see some live examples. All right, 10dB setup improvements. This is nice. Before SQL Server 2016, we go to install any SQL Server version, let's say 2014, and we did the whole setup, etc. And we know by default that we had to go, when the setup was complete, we had to go to the 10dB configuration and change it, right? Because by default it was creating one file for data, one file for log, with crazy auto growth values in percentage, etc., and probably on a crazy path, right? So in SQL Server 2016, Microsoft added the possibility of set up the 10dB from within the setup, right? So we are now able to choose the amount of files, the destination of the files, the initial size, the grow value, right? The auto grow value for data and for log, right? So that was a huge advantage, right? So because I've seen over the years many production environments that by default we're running with the default 10dB, one file growing by 10% on the system disk, right? So that was not good in terms of best practices. Okay, in 2016 there was a limitation, right? Each data file cannot be over 256 gigs, right? Now in 2017 they removed this limitation, and we can, make set up bigger files, right? And also we get a warning if the files are quite big that just giving us a reminder that we have to enable instant file initialization, right? So this is something that, now during the setup process, we have that possibility that before we have it in our to-do list post installation, right? So that's also important. In terms of 10dB monitoring and planning, one of the pain points for every DBA, especially when we have the situation in where 10dB grows and grows and grows, and we just watch, and the 10dB keeps growing, and we have to pick up the phone and call our storage administrator saying, hey, we are running into a problem, please expand the driving where the 10dB lives, etc. Well, now we have a new DMB, right, which is the starting point, right? It's something that's going to help us definitely under certain situations to see the amount of space used in 10dB, but only, right, if we are using version store, right? So if your workload or your databases are configured to use version store, right? Now, querying this DMB, we can check per speed, per process ID, the amount of size on 10dB. As I said, this is good. This is the first step, and well, they promise to keep improving this area, right? Because 10dB monitoring and planning is one of the critical points on every production environment, I would say. Here's a quick example, all right? So we're gonna see it later. We're gonna create a table. We're gonna enable snapshot isolation, and we're gonna check this new DM transversion store space usage. Okay, transaction log. Hello?
Now, we do have questions like Gordon, for instance, and I think he's referring to the backups. He was asking, are the new backup columns exposed in the GUI, I'm guessing SQL Server Management Studio, in some way, or will smart backups be T-SQL based, I'm guessing, or DMVs?
for now is T-SQL only, right? So you have to query DMBs or DMF, right? And these new columns are only available in SQL Server 2017. So a good reason to go and upgrade as soon as possible.
And one thing, by the way, SQL Server Management Studio is decoupled from SQL Server installation, which means the updates and changes that are happening in SQL Server Management Studio is a lot faster now, so you can make some suggestions so that the next release will include it. I'm actually using SQL Server SSMS 17.5, so again, just because it's decoupled, you can ask myself, hey, can you include those columns in the GUI or in SQL Server Management Studio?
Yeah, definitely. About that topic, Microsoft promised that they're going to release regular updates to Management Studio once every month or 2 months. So, all right, transaction log monitoring and diagnostic, right? One of the also another pain point that we have DBAs are the BLF, right? So for the transaction log, just check the virtual log files, the amount of virtual log files, the sizes, etc. So we know that if we have a database and we set up the auto grow in a small value and the database, the transaction log is growing quickly and so often, and then we just go and shrink, well, we are not doing we need a favor to the database, right? Because then when we have to recover that database in case we have to, we may have to wait. So keeping the number of BLF control, right, is a good practice since ever, right? But now, I mean, we had tools to check that, which was DBCC log info, right? This is in previous version of SQL servers. But now in 2017, we have a DMB called DMDB log info, right? And there is also a DMF, right, in where we can specify the database ID. With that, we get all the information for all the databases. We just do a select from the DMB. For every single database, we see the amount of BLF plus other information, right? But really important, we can easily see the BLF, right? So we can start refactoring our maintenance script, right? Just to, instead of just doing the BCC, for each database, the BCC log info, which is sometimes expensive and sometimes not very recommended. Which now in 2017 we just can query this DMB. Right? It's quickly and it's very useful. We're going to see something later. Okay. This is something that is also important and useful, and in some cases, we used to work on databases on our workstation, development server, a server that in terms of hardware is small, right? Because we were just developing and preparing our solution, right? So let's say that initially we came up with a small database, right? That the day that we decide to deploy to production, right, to our super duper high-end million of cores production server, we put that database over there, and we notice, right, that the backup times for the small databases were taking so long, right? And was not, reasonable. Hey, I have a few megabytes database in our high performance server with storage, super fast storage, etc. And when I do a backup, it's taking crazy long. Right? Why is that? Okay, now in SQL Server 2017, Microsoft have refactored that thing, right, to improve the backup time for small to medium databases on high-end servers. All right. Here we have some examples, right? The blue line is previous SQL version, and the orange line is 2017, right? So you see 8 megabyte, 256 megabyte, 1 gigabyte, right? The time spent in doing backup was long, right? And in SQL Server 2017, right, is immediate, right? When the database start growing in terms of size, right, both numbers were we're getting close, right? But especially for small to medium sizes, this is an advantage, right? So it's something good to consider. Okay, processor information in SQL Server. We always talk about processors, CPU, core, socket, etc. Right? Before, we since couple of versions before, we have CSDM OS sysinfo, right, which is a good DMB to check information regarding to the processor, right? But there were some important counters that were missing, right? Socket count, core count, and core per socket. If we have to, check our hardware, right, besides going to SQL, we had to ask the sysadmin, hey, give me the amount of sockets that we have, the cores and the core per socket, right? And the sysadmin had to go to, sysinfo or the server or contact the vendor or whatever, right? Now, in SQL Server 2017, we have all this information on the DMB, right? Socket count, core count, and cores per socket. This is also important. And again, this was also bought by all of us. All right. There is also a new DMB, right, called DMOS host info, right? And now that we have multiple platform, right, we can easily check the host platform, the service pack level, the versions, etc. Right? So just doing a simple select to this DMOS host info, right? We get information about our platform and the OS also, right? Resumable online index rebuild. As I said briefly before, my favorite feature, right? I came from SQL Server 6.5 times, so doing a maintenance and index rebuild on a big database was tremendous, was painful. We tried to avoid it as much as possible, right? Was something that we had to get out everybody off the server for number of hours, days, etc. And it was really painful. Also handling the transaction log size for this offline index reveal was also quite complicated, right? And at that time was something that was all or nothing, right? So you cannot do partial index reveal, right? You just have to do all or don't do it. So you have to schedule a reasonable amount of time to do the whole thing. In previous versions, we have Microsoft introduced actually the online index rebuild, right? Was a huge step. It was something really good because in some cases, in certain cases, we were able to do index rebuild online without locking the table. Right? Before we just locked the whole table and nobody was able to touch the table. Right? With this online option, we had this new shortcut. Right? It was good, but again, it was not ideal, right? Because it's not always online, right? and it's not always that fast. You know, there are some complications, but again, it's really good. There are many blogs about the online index rebuild, and well, the maintenance plan by Ola. You know, they use it a lot, right? So that was really good. But now we had another situation. You know, when we do the index rebuild, we had to do it, right? And just finish the index for that particular table, right? And this is, I mean, the most complicated situation for me. If you have a huge database with huge tables, and that database is within an availability group, right, with several replicas, right, of course, in full recovery model, right? So you have to allocate enough disk space to handle transaction log size, right? That was a pain point, really complicated. Well, now with this feature, Resumable Online Index Rebuild, we can start an index rebuild on a particular index and pause it, right? Yes, you heard well, pause it. You can just hit the pause button, right? Put everybody back to the server, keep working, right? And then when you have your following maintenance windows or your next, you know, the moment in where you can work offline with this, you can resume from that point, right? Also, when you do this pause, you can also take the opportunity to do a transaction log backup, right? And boom, reduce the percentage of the transaction log, right? That was also huge, right? So with all these opportunities that we have, we can, again, rethink our maintenance. We have better and smartest choices to do, we said before, backups, and now index maintenance, right? And you know, we can start our index maintenance today. We can do certain indexes for certain tables, and we can pause it. We can, you know, reach one point and then wait till, you know, 1 week, 1 day, or whatever, and resume it from there. Huge, huge. As I said, I love this. This is the syntax, right? We have the alter index, right? With the option resumable equal on, right? And we have a DMB called sys index resumable operations, right? Pay attention to this one, because you can query this this DMB and check all the indexes operation, all the index rebuild operation, the percentage of completion, right? And if they are in a running state, of if they are in a pause mode, right? We're gonna see a demo later.
Now I have a question from
Yeah.
Jalen. Can't remember exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Resumable index rebuilds. Will it also allow resuming a rebuild that bombed after the wait at low priority timeout expires? And he's saying we're using Ola's index maintenance scripts, and I have a few heavily hit indexes that sometimes get rebuilt but never get swapped in due to locked timeouts. So I'm guessing he's asking about the impacts of this for the indexes that were set to wait at low priority parameter.
My recommendation in that case, test it, try it, right? And not every workload is the same, not every table, not every scenario, right? We have the tool, right? It wasn't there before, so let's give it a try. And if you have any question in particular, we're gonna see it later in action, but it's good to give it a try. At least give it a try.
Very good suggestion.
Okay, automatic plan correction. In SQL Server 2016, Microsoft introduced Query Store, right? This you know, black box of every plane that it was recording every single action, right? You have to enable per database, so you were capturing execution plan, you were capturing runtime information, etc. Right? Huge. Query Store is a great feature, and it is there since SQL Server 2016. So in few lines, with if you had, let's say, a report that normally takes few seconds to finish, and one day you arrive to the office and that report was running for hours, right? Before Query Store, you have to start doing some crazy things, troubleshooting, find out the problem, etc. With Query Store enabled, right, you just can go to the Query Store report and see if the plan, the execution plan, was changed over the way, right? So graphically with the reports, or even by T-SQL, you can easily find out that problem and also fix it. How? You had the ability of force out a plan, right, to a particular workload, a particular query, right? But what SQL does is identify it and provide it to you, right? And you, as a DBA, what you have to do is read information, evaluate what is the best plan, right, and force it manually, right? Let's say that you had the regression during the night, and then you arrive 8 a.m. in the morning, and the whole night the workload was running with the plan regression, and it was really, really bad because it was an important report or whatever, right? Now in SQL Server 2017, at the top of Query Store, we have automatic tuning. What is that? We can enable at database level, right, to set to specify to SQL that automatically can set the last known good plan for every workload that has some sort of regression, right? So if something was running good with the normal query plan, for some reason it changed, it took another execution plan because of the statistics, whatever, right? Automatically, SQL can set the last known good plan, and in a matter of seconds, keep running in a reasonable, with the best known plan, right? We're gonna see it later. Here is the syntax with Query Store, right? We have to identify the query ID and the plan ID and force it or unforce it from T-SQL or also from the WID, from Management Studio, right? Now in SQL Server 2017, this is also a feature that is per database, right? We have the alter database, set automatic tuning, force last good plan equal on. We do that, and you're gonna see it in a moment. It's terrible. You see that the regression is a matter of seconds, and then the workload is good again. So this gives us a lot of, again, opportunities and intelligence to the platform that we all use and love, right? String functions. Wow. This is what I say, that now Microsoft is a different company that we heard. How many of you were using L-trim and R-trim to trim string, right? For number of years, since ever, right? Well, now we have the trim function, right? I remember a couple of conferences where I present this, that people stand up and applaud, right? And this is really, really good. And again, it's simple. So all these functions translate concat, WS, and string aggregation. You're going to see it later. So those are things that before SQL Server 2017, they were possible to do, right? But we had to use a bunch, several lines of code, some cases ugly code, right? Let's say to concatenate email address and put the semicolon in between, we have to, use 4 XML, so crazy things. Everything doable, right? But with a lot of code. Now, with a simple function, we can all do that, right? In one sentence, one line, right? Okay, demo time. Let's try to cover all this. We good with time? Yes. All right. We have something for me. All right, this is a smart differential backup, right? We have SQL Server 2017 installed on my machine and the AdventureWorks database. We're going to check the differential, the percentage of change in terms of extent page since the last full backup. In this case, was 43%. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a new full backup, right? And the end result of this will be that right after the full backup, now this difference is 0, right? We can, create some tables and add some workload, do multiple inserts, and what we can see is that at the end, right, we are doing an insert of 1,500 lines into a table. This value change, right? Okay, not too much, right? But now the difference is 1%. So with the code, right, what we can do, as I said a couple of times, we can, check this percentage change, do an if, and if it is less than 70%, we do a differential backup, right? If it is over 70%, we do our full backups. Okay, this is not the one I wanted. For transaction logs, right, we have the database in full recovery, right? We check the percentage of the transaction log usage. Now for AdventureWorks 2014, it's not too big, right? So we check the DMB and we see that we have total size of log, active VLF, active log size in megabyte, right? Log truncation reason, in this case, nothing. But we also have the time of the last full, the last transaction log backup, the amount of megabyte since the last log backup, and the percentage that we're using, right? So again, we can, if we do a transaction log backup, right? This one is now 0% and 0 megabyte use, right? So it's really useful for to query this info and decide what to do, right? That's the end result. Sys DMOS sysinfo, right? As I said before, here at the top, I expose the 3 new columns, right? Socket count, CPU count, and cores per socket. And down here, the host information. Windows is a Windows 10, and the version, service packs, etc. Right? This is also new. So now let's go to the index rebuild demo. I have this query which takes some time, so that is why I run it in advance, which basically tells us the per index, per table, the fragmentation level in percentage, the page count, and the row count. Right? So we have here, let me do this, close the one that I'm not using. So we have this, for example, we're going to take the IDX 22 from the table 2, right, which has 73% fragmentation. So we go to the other window, right? So we said, let's do for the index 2 of table 2. So let's do alter index rebuild with resumable on. We get an error message. All right. Error message. The resumable option cannot be set on when offline option is off. That is why it's online resumable index rebuild. This has to be an online operation. All right. So what we're going to do here is we will do the alter index rebuild with resumable on and online all. We have an additional parameter, max duration, right? This is a number in minutes. We can specify for how long we want this index rebuild with this online index rebuild operation to run. We can say, okay, run for 10 minutes. I have only 10 minutes to do the index rebuild and then I have to resume something. So we have this possibility. So let me bring this guy. And this is what I told you before, this sys index resumable operations. Right now, there are no operations, right? But now I will launch my alter index rebuild. Right? Going back here, I have, right? Let's see what we have. Percentage complete, 9%, right? The name of the index, the index ID, the statement that I'm running, max DOP, right? The status and the time, right? So I can go here or in another session, just hit, do the option pause, right? Or just cancel, right? It's gonna take a little while to cancel, but when it cancels, we're gonna see the operation here as pause, right? And it's been complete by 88%, right? So then I can go and do backup log from my database main DB, right? Reduce the transaction log usage, and then hit the option resume, right? And continue with the index rebuild operation. That's huge. Select into in a file group. We have Adventure Works database, Adventure Works DW actually, right? So what I will do here is I will add a new file group called FG2. I will add a new data file on my D drive called Adventure Works DW data 2, right? And I will add it to this file group. When we check the database, now we have the primary file group as well as the FG2 file group, right? So this is the one that does all the magic. All right, when we're running, we send this to the FG2, right? And this FC2, this file group, is on a super fast storage. Not in this case, it's a virtual machine, but you can accomplish this very easily. Let's see. Let's jump to the automatic tuning demo. This is a demo that was made by Bob Ward in the last SQL Summit, the past summit, and it was huge. This is about automatic tuning. So we have our perfmon, right? And what we have added as a counter is batch request per second, right? So what I will do here is I will generate activity, right? And we see that we have certain batch requests per second, right? So our workload is running pretty normal, right? But now what we're gonna do is we're gonna introduce a plan regression, right? So we introduce the regression and boom, the batch requests per second went down, right, a lot. And it can stay down kind of forever, right? So if we go to Management Studio, we check the recommendations that the database has for us. It's saying, oh, we have this ID that the CPU changed from this value to this value, right? So it's probably good that if you force the plan using this statement. This is actually all recommended by this DMDB tuning recommendations DMB, right? So we get this. So the only thing we have to do here is just grab the script, paste it there. So we're gonna, using query store, we're gonna force the query ID 29 to use the plan ID 7, right? When we go back to our perfmon, right, the batch requests per second go back to normal, right? But what happened? All this time, the workload was running with regression, right? So as I said before, we had to go there, enable it manually, force the plan manually, etc. So let's cancel this. Let's clean what we have, no more activity, all right? So now we will go to auto-tune, right? Alter database, while war importer, set automatic tuning, force last good plan equal on, right? So we are gonna run this. Again, we're gonna generate workload, and we have batch requests per second. Now, note what's gonna happen when I generate the regression, right? I'm gonna do it. So what it did, the batch requests per second went down, but immediately, right, went back to normal. So it was immediately that the engine forced automatically the last known good plan, right? So this was huge, actually. So let's go back to the presentation.
Yeah, Pablo, I do have one question here. Pablo was asking, is there a cost in the server when you activate auto-tuning?
I mean, what we see is that what Microsoft said with Query Store, there is a minor performance cost that we may need to pay, but I believe that it's worth it, right? Because we are putting our database in auto-tune mode, right? So it's but what Microsoft always said is that it's not considerable, right? It's not going to hurt our server. Of course, we have the freedom of enable it and disable it as we wish. But everybody's saying that it's not considerable. In my environment, I haven't noticed it. Right? I enable all this, and I haven't noticed any performance degradation because of having either query store or automatic tuning enabled. Other features that we may need to pay attention is graph processing. I'm leaving some links to see. Show plan enhancement, right? With Management Studio, we can see that we have better representation of show plans, and adaptive query processing, something that we have seen before. Now in SQL Server 2017, there is this modern release model, right? Which basically Microsoft is not releasing Service Pack anymore, right? They are just releasing cumulative updates, one per month, and besides fixing things, is also adding features, right? So this is what they call the modern service release. There is a link here to read about it. Right? And finally, SQL Server Operation Studio, which is in preview, which is the management. It's not the replacement of Management Studio, right? But it's a platform that you can use on every OS, Linux, Mac OS, or Windows, right? And with this, you can monitor or connect to your SQL Server. Very briefly, this is what it looks like, right? And it's multi-platform. You have your servers here, you have your query, you can, what I just did before, you can do it here, right? So it's useful and very nice, actually. It's still in preview, but it's doing really, really well. And with that, I just finish. If there are more questions. This is, by the way, this is my contact information, Twitter, LinkedIn, and my blog. So feel free to contact me with questions or concerns about these presentations or other things.
So Javier, here's a question for you, and Jeff asked this through the Slack chat. I know I'm looking at you here. So Jeff was asking, so Query Store has overhead. The guess is on top of that, audio tuning will also have overhead, which you've already answered. But because Query Store started off in SQL 2016, and it is part of 2017, so you're simply adding auto tuning on top of Query Store. Is that correct?
Yes, and also in Query Store now, it tracks the weight stats that in SQL Server 2016 it was not, right? So that was another feature of the new Query Store. But at the top of that, you have automatic tuning, which is a guy that is always checking the Query Store dashboard to see for any regression or on any plan.
Why do I get the feeling, I don't know if it's just me, why do I get the feeling that all of these enhancements are actually geared towards eliminating the DBA's job in the future? I don't know if it's just me or everybody feels the same way.
Seems like, right? But I really don't believe that. I believe that with the cloud and all the new possibilities that we have, maybe what the DBA should do. A friend of mine just told me this a couple of days ago. DBA maybe are becoming the new COBOL writers, right? So I kept thinking about that, but I said, maybe we have to expand and evolve, like SQL Server. Right now, it's the whole data platform umbrella, right? Power BI, Azure, all the services in Azure. Well, I saw you, Brent, was playing with managed instances, my new best friend, actually. And, it's huge. So we have to evolve, right? We cannot just write the SQL and do performance tuning and take baselines, right? We have to evolve also as DBA, right? It's a good question. It's a good suggestion. I think that more than one is thinking about that, right? I did, but I believe that the answer is keep evolving as the platform, and you will keep having your shop.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for presenting today, Javier. Great session. Lots of comments over in Slack if you want to look at them afterwards. Thanks for hanging out,